Hello, my name is Danny, and I'm going to be showing you how to utilize Git. Git is a version control system that's available to you for free, open source. I'm going to go ahead and show you. So yeah, let's navigate here. So you might be wondering what Git is, and of course, if you're familiar with Git, you probably want to navigate to part 2 of this video, just because I'm going to be talking about what is Git in the beginning of this video here. So let's navigate to here. So you might be wondering what Git is. You can go to the website and you'll see that Git is a free and open source distributed version control system. So what does that mean? Essentially, you might be working with a coding project, most likely you are, but you can also utilize this in other projects as well, video projects, company projects, I don't know, whatever has to do with software really. But the reason why we want to use a version control system is because we want to make sure that we have a team and the team can work with different versions of the same main product essentially. And you want to make sure that you are constantly, you have saved this main version, this real version of your project out there somewhere on Git essentially. I'll show you how to utilize Git here in just a second. I'll show a visualization actually. So I'll navigate here to this untitled diagram. This is draw.io. I find it very helpful for a lot of visualizing of how to do a lot of programming stuff. But yeah, let's start here. So again, you have your project, whatever you decide to make a project. That's awesome. And with this project, you want to start incrementally. You want to start adding to your project incrementally. That doesn't sound like a word. You want to start adding your project little by little. That's essentially what version control is here. Sorry about that little kerfuffle there. So imagine, let's take a second here to imagine that this is your project. So we can navigate to this, and you'll see here, this is project. You started the project. Everything has to start somewhere, right? And we're going to kind of be using this, tree-based system for utilizing Git. So this is your project, it's here, it exists. It could be anything you want. But for now, let's use the context of a program, a program essentially, software. So you have your project, and really, you might not specify it, but this is really your version 1 of your project. When you first create it, you might have created a new repository on GitHub. This is your project. And now you want to add a change to your project. Say, I don't know, it could be any change really. But just for now, just know that you added a change to your project. So let's go ahead and add this little arrow. And let's say so I'm going to add some text here. I'm going to say made a change, what this arrow signifies. And now inside of this new circle, I'll say project version 2. So fantastic. You just made a change, and now your project is project version 2. That's awesome. So now we went from here to here. And essentially with Git, especially with GitHub, which is really nice, you can track your changes to your project the entire length of your project, essentially, which is really nice. You can always see where you started, how your project incrementally changed. It still doesn't sound right. It changed little by little to essentially become the project that it is today. You can kind of consider this like a timeline. So we started here, where my mouse is. This is currently time 0 right now. And going up, this is going more and more in time, essentially. I could even use like an arrow here, as... if I could even, do I know how to rotate this? I don't know how to rotate it, but just know that this essentially means as time continues, we're updating a project. But of course, whenever we work on projects, we aren't always working by ourselves. Most likely, especially in a work environment, we are working with other collaborators. So in that case, in your workspace, you might have a collaborator, you might have a team, multiple teams. You might have a team for working on the styling of a page. You might have a team that's working on the server side stuff of your project, for getting information, storing data, sensitive user information, that kind of stuff. So essentially, utilizing GitHub, like so how do we get to there? So essentially we have this like ideal, so kind of think of it in your head for a second. You're thinking, "Oh, I have this, project version 3, and I know that I want to add some changes to here." And that's great. But the thing is, you can't really have, this is kind of the idea of like, what if like, so it really, if you did this is as if like everyone is adding their change in one big chunk here. This is, oh really, everyone's changing their stuff here. I can't say that word anymore. But really, in reality, you want to make sure that there's a separation of concerns with developing your project utilizing Git. So luckily, there is a main Git paradigm that is called branching, and that is what you'll be utilizing here. That's why I like to utilize this tree system that we have. So again, imagine there's a team for styling the page or just creating the user interface in general. So rather than having, well, we'll keep this line here for now. Well, actually, we'll just keep this line just in general. So what we're going to do is imagine that now off of this project version 2, we created a new branch. So again, this is called a branch, and we'll learn how to utilize Git tools to actually create branches later on. And now we can go ahead and have this here, and we're going to call this user interface branch. So fantastic. So now we have our team. They're dedicated to building this user interface branch that's based off here. And again, this is just a complete copy of project version 2 for this branch to work with. And again, we might also have another team here that is going to be working with, maybe this is going to be the server infrastructure branch. And this is a very generalized system. So you have two different branches right here. And yeah, let me just fix this really quick. Yeah, that's good enough. So again, inside of this branch, we're gonna have teams that are working inside of each of these branches. So what you will do inside of Git is you'll be doing a git add, git commit, and git push to this branch. Again, we'll go into that later on, but essentially that is essentially how you add to your branch. To add to a branch, you need to do there's some commands. You'll be doing a git add, git commit, and then with a message generally, and then finally a git push to a specific git push origin to a specific branch name there. So that is generally what you would do there, but let's not get too in the details of that just yet. So essentially you imagine you added items to this user interface branch. Once it is done, now you want to add that to your project version 3. But the thing is, you won't really directly be adding to your project version 3. I believe that you could, you do that eventually, but you want to add these things incrementally, essentially. The way that you actually get here is technically you'll be adding it right here. So again, this is our project version 2. And as it moves on through time, you created this user interface branch. And once the changes are done on that user interface branch that you did, the features that you wanted to add, you're going to go ahead and do something called a pull request. And what this pull request is essentially you have your branch, and now you are requesting to the main project. You're saying, hey, I want to go ahead and I want to bring in the changes I did in this user interface branch, and I want to bring them into the project version 2. So slowly over time, this is becoming this project version 3. And again, you'll do the same thing here. So maybe later on in that day, you might have the server infrastructure branch, the team, they might say, hey, we finished what we want to do. Let's also add this to this project. And now, once this is done, now we truly have our project version 3. Now it's actually here. And again, we did this through pull requests by working on our branches, so on and so forth. And even we can even make branches of branches, which is a little condensed. I don't want to say condensed. There's a different word for it. Convoluted is what I should say. So you might even, as you go further on inside of your project, you might decide to say, oh, actually, so I have this, future project version 4 out there that I do want to develop. But how do I get to that? Well, okay, so easy enough. We want to add some new features to our user interface. So I'm going to do a little bit of this. I'm going to say user interface. So this user interface branch is dedicated to building the user interface, right? But there are many portions of building a user interface when it comes to programming a full stack application, for instance. There is the styling of the page, and there is the JavaScript, the actual, I suppose the muscles, I don't really know what to call it. Really the interactions of the page, I should say, is what the JavaScript is on the page. So you might even have sub branches here, is what my point is. So you can see here, there'll be a branch for styles, and eventually there could even be a branch here for the code. Or I should even say JavaScript functionality is what's going to be here essentially. So again, you could even have sub branches of a branch. And then again, once these are done, and again, this is also going through time, and you will see this is the user interface v2, and this also has, again, its own version system here as well. So once this one is done, you'll be adding it here, JavaScript functionality. You'll also be adding that here slowly. And finally, once all of that is done, you can go ahead and add your user interface version 2 of this specific branch. And you really don't want to use the same name as I kind of used here, but this is kind of the idea. That's what's more important. So finally, you can see that I have finally added my user interface version 2 to my project, and now I finally have this project version 4. And you can even zoom out and you just check it out. Like this is our project essentially. It might be very small on your screen. Let's see if I can actually view full screen. I think there's a full screen button here somewhere. Oh, look at that. Well, it didn't help that much, but essentially this is our project. So we started itty bitty all the way from project version 1, moved on to project version 2. We did our pull request, project version 3, and this is essentially how the Git system will work for you in order to go ahead and incrementally add changes to your project. Now it doesn't sound so weird to say the word incrementally. So project version 3 created an interface branch, and now we slowly increment into our project version 4. So now we're kind of at part 2 is what I want to say. So how do we actually go ahead and do this? And for programming, for instance, again, this is mostly for programming. So for anything else, you can still do this, but mostly focus on a programming context here. So let's go ahead and navigate to something here. So I already created a GitHub repository. I called it testing branches. And what this does is when you create a repository on GitHub, it already comes with a default branch. In this case, my default branch is called main. So again, this is that same idea. Imagine this is like the root of our tree, the stump. Not really a stump, just the root of our tree. So main is the equivalent of this project version 1. And as it continues, we have a project version 2, so on and so forth. Let's actually try to copy. Very similar idea. Let's try to copy what we did here. So let's make a change from project version 1 to project version 2. Let's check that out. Before I go on, another way of seeing this is in our network. You'll see right now we just have this little dot. That's us. That's where we are at right now. So I'm going to navigate to my code. That's not my code. I'm going to navigate to my code now. And I'm going to add something. I'm going to add just a basic file, a text file, for instance. I'm going to say new file.txt. This is a text file. And I'm going to say this is a text file. And you can see inside of VS Code, there's this green highlighting. This means that it is a new file and it is untracked. So if I go ahead and go into my console, or into my terminal in VS Code, you'll see here it should be available to you. What you want to do is this command. So type in Git and make sure that you have Git installed if you want to do this on your computer. Otherwise, you can also use VS Code. They have a built-in editor with VS Code that you can utilize there as well. But this is just for students who have Git already installed on their computer. I'm already used to doing it like this. So you want to go ahead and do this. And I cloned this already, so yeah. So I can confirm that this is a remote repository. If I do git remote-v, you can see it's already connected to my remote repository on GitHub. So now I'm going to do git status, and you'll see, oh, look at that. It is currently untracked because I just added this new file. So to do that, I can do git add, and I want to specify the file. You can press tab and it'll autocomplete. Or preferably what I like to do, I'm not too sure if this is bad practice, but I prefer it. You can just do git add dot, and this will add everything. All the new changes, it'll bring them up for staging essentially. So now that they're all staged, all the changes that I just added are staged. You can see here, if you hover over again, it'll say index added. So essentially we added this file to the staging, and finally you'll say git commit add, and you want to make sure to add a good message. You want to let your collaborators know what you just did essentially, and especially for your future self if you're working on this later on. So git commit -m add new file.txt. So I'm going to do that, and you'll see this is our hash. So each specific version of our project will have a hash, which is essentially a bunch of numbers and letters that you can just think of it as a bunch of letters and numbers as like a key for what version of this project that it is. So for this specific version of this project, this is 3306C30, and this happens when you commit essentially. So I'm going to say git push origin main, and now we're essentially pushing our changes. So again, if I go back to that visualization here, once I made a change with my git add git commit, with that git push origin main, I'm now creating this project version 2. Again, I can actually navigate to my GitHub. If I reload the page, you can see here, I just, with this commit hash, I now created this file.txt to make this project version 2. And again, if I go to my insights, to my network, you should see here, look at that. So this is, again, let's make the comparison. These two dots right here, version 1, version 2. You'll see here there's version 1 and there's version 2. So you can see here I have that 0192AD5. That was version 1 of my project. And now version 2 of my project is 3306C30. The numbers are not super important. I just want to specify how they're different. That's the most important thing to say. Perfect. So yeah, we just updated our project. And of course, what if we have multiple collaborators with our project? That's really important to take into consideration. So I'm navigating back to my VS Code, and I'm deciding to say, okay, now I'm going to have a team that's going to develop the user interface. So I'm going to go to my Git. I'm going to say Git checkout -b, and checkout is a way to navigate to another branch inside of your project. But with this flag called -b, this is how you make a new branch. So I'm going to navigate to a new branch, and I'm going to call it HTML, I'll say UI branch. And again, this is not, you want to make a branch specific to the kind of feature that you want. In this case, it's a very general UI user interface branch, but you can really, name it whatever you want, but highly recommend you name it to something that you're actually going to be making on this branch. So I made that, and now I'm on this user interface branch. So what am I going to do? Maybe I'll add an index.html file. So I'm going to say index.html, press enter, and I'm going to use IMIT abbreviation, and now I have this user interface. If I open this up in the browser, you'll see, hey, or actually even better, I'll say this is project v2. Yeah, I'll say, actually even better, yeah, I'll say this is my, I'll say UI branch. And this is just a name I just put on here. But again, if I open this in the browser, you should see it says UI branch. Sorry, it's really white, might be blinding. That is my UI branch. And again, what I just did right now is very similar to this. I made a new branch. So now I'm inside of here, and now I'm making changes specifically to this branch. Um, so really, in reality, what this looks like, it looks very similar to this bottom branch. So what I'm going to do here is just quickly make a small edit. I'm going to make this a little smaller. And now I'm going to say, here I'm going to say user interface branch v2. And I'm going to make this a little smaller here. And it's very similar to what we did right here. We did this git add. We're going to do this git add, git commit, git push origin. And we are going to add it here. Yeah, we're going to be adding it to our to this little line here, which essentially is becoming, again, slowly becoming our project version 3. This is our merge, essentially. So we made a change. So I'll just put a text here, made a change. And now we're doing that. So if we navigate back to our VS Code, I'm going to say git add, git commit, add HTML file. That's what I did. And you can see, look at that. This is a new hash. This is a new version of our project, but except in this branch. So I'm going to say git push origin UI branch because I want to make a new version. Okay, perfect. So again, if we go to that network graph and reload the page, you can see I have, it's a little hard to see because these names are blocking. But really what's happening is, if you can see it, unfortunately, it's a little hard to see. But there's a little dot hidden underneath this main, where I created that new branch of UI branch. And once I added something to that branch, it created this additional node that's called, if I can go to it somehow, is there no way I can go to somehow? Let me reload the page here. Okay, perfect. So now you can see it says add HTML file. And that's this new hash, essentially, this new version of this UI branch. And now, once that I've done that, now I want to bring it back to my main branch. So let's navigate. So what's really nice with GitHub is it can detect once you've made a change to your project. So if I go to testing branches, you're going to see, oh, look at this. UI branch had a push. So let's do that. Let's compare and pull request. And now I'm going to create a pull request. So I'm going to pull, again, our base is main. So consider main is the one, base is going to be the one that we want to pull into. And compare is going to be what we just added to and that we want to bring in. So again, base is going to be this line in the middle. Compare is going to be this side branch on the side, and we're going to bring it into here. So I'm going to say create pull request. So perfect. It's going to go ahead and it's going to check if there's merge conflicts, and we'll be going over that later on. Yeah, we're going to be going over that later on. So now we're going to merge the pull request. So now once we have done that, okay, we're going to merge the pull request. And I don't know what happened here. I think it should have happened. So yep, there it is. So now the pull request successfully merged and closed. So fantastic. We've created a new version 3 of our project essentially from doing that. So consider that this doesn't exist right now. This is essentially now our project version 3, which is really nice. This is how we slowly add to our project, which is super important to do incrementally. Very, very good. And now if I navigate to my main, you should see it looks like this. But you want to make sure that your main looks like this on your local version of your project as well. So here, if I navigate to git checkout main, so again, that's how you switch branches. You'll see I don't have an index.html page because I don't have the changes that are on my remote on GitHub. So here, you want to do git pull origin main. And now you should have all of those changes. So you should see here, index.html, UI branch. Fantastic. So yeah, let's continue on here. What if we want to make a branch of a branch? That is possible. It is a little convoluted, but I will try to do it. I will try to attempt it. I haven't attempted it yet. But we'll try to do it here. Well, we'll save that for later on, actually, because I think it's not very necessary right now. For this kind of entry-level understanding of Git. Let's actually try to get a merge conflict to happen. I think that's more important. So I'll visualize it I'll visualize it here, what a merge conflict is. So again, we have this, desired project 4 of what we want, right? That's what we want here. So that's great. But how do we get there? Of course, we do our usual. We're going to create a project. We're going to create a branch here. And I'm going to call this, maybe I'll call this styles, for instance, styles branch. And I'm going to create another branch here. And in this case, maybe I'll call this JavaScript functionality. And yep, there it is. Cool. So we want to make sure that these are going to be added eventually to our project, just like so. We're going to, we're not showing it, but we're essentially doing this at the very bottom. We made a change. We have branch version 2, and we're pull requesting it into project version 3. So we have our styles branch and whatnot. So I'm going to mimic having another collaborator because I have another computer over here. You can see right here, another computer, and I'm going to be adding changes on this as a fake secondary collaborator to see if I can make a merge conflict happen. So what I'm going to do is even better. Say we have two people, okay? Two people working on the styles branch. So I am me. There's David over there working on his styles branch, and let's work on it here. So let's go back to VS Code, and I'm gonna go to I'm in the main branch currently. So I'm gonna do git checkout -b. I'm gonna say styles. So great. The reason for this branch is to add styling to our page. So I'm not gonna actually add that functionality, but this is just an example. So style.css, and I'm gonna say body of margin 0. So I'm giving the body HTML tag a margin of 0 essentially. And that's great. So now I want to go ahead and add this eventually. So I'm going to say git add, git commits, and I'm going to say here adding style.css and body styling. And eventually I'm going to add git push origin styles. Perfect. So that's great. Now imagine that we have David over here, and we're both collaborators, but maybe we're not super good at communicating. He's very busy. I'm also very busy. So I'm still working on my own. Maybe I'm adding an additional change here. I'm saying maybe I'll add something to my H1 tag. I'm going to say H1. I'm going to make that a background color of blue for whatever, maybe just for my sake, I'll say light blue. For my peace of mind here, and now I'm gonna go to my other laptop. I'm gonna pretend to add some. Not pretend. I am going to add something. So I'm going over here. Sorry, I'm over here, so I might sound kind of distant. So I'm gonna navigate to here. I'm doing git pull to get everything, and now I'm doing git checkout styles. Okay, so now I'm currently in the styles branch on this computer. I'm David. Hello. And I'm adding some stuff. And look at this. So as David, I see, oh, margin of 0. But hey, for me, that doesn't really work. So maybe the styling is kind of weird. I'm going to change something here. Maybe I'm going to say margin of 5 pixels. And again, you don't see this. I'm sorry. Don't really know how to film this right now. And I'm going to say background color of 10. I'm going to say yellow because that's very odd. And as David, I'm going to do a git add, git commits, add styling to body, git push origin styles. Fantastic. All right, so I just added to the styles branch as David, and now Danny, me, I'm still working here. So I'm going to say, okay, again, I was pretty satisfied with this body margin of 0, and I have my H1 tag. That's great. So now I'm going to do my git add. And now I'm going to do my git commits, and I'm going to say, cool, added H1 styling. And finally, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do git push origin styles because, this is great. And then I'm going to say, oh, no, you can see this right here. I don't know if I can actually zoom in. Can I zoom into this? A little bit. I just want to make sure this is readable. That's the most important thing for me with showing everyone this. So you'll see here, oh, no, look at that. There was a merge conflict. Well, there wasn't really a merge conflict. What happened here specifically, there's not a merge conflict yet. updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. So what does that mean? So again, make sure that you remember that you have your machine, you have your computer here. And then there is GitHub. GitHub is a website that has your work, but it's somewhere out there in the world on a computer there. And David pushed his work locally to that, GitHub computer somewhere out there. And I am also trying to push my work to that GitHub computer out there. But GitHub and Git is very great because it wants to let you know, hey, by the way, there are some, your update was rejected. We don't want to overwrite what David just did because maybe what David did was really good. Maybe it's really important, and maybe you should have been communicating more. Really, is what's happening here. So because this remote contains work, you should do a git pull. See what happens. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do a git pull. Hopefully you can read this. I'm gonna do a git pull origin style. So I'm gonna do this because I'm thinking, okay, what's the issue here? It told me to do a git pull, so I'm gonna say git pull origin styles, and it's gonna say, oh my god, and you might be scared. This when I first interacted with this system, this tooling system, it was very scary because you're thinking, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Conflict is a negative word, but really conflicts are here to help you. They're here to tell you, hey, you know what, we don't want to delete anyone's changes, because what anyone added might be super important. So this is what should be showing up in your VS Code, hopefully. You'll see here that there is this head and that there is this blue area. It says incoming change. So current change is what you just added to your project, and it's what you're trying to push to this styles branch. But incoming change is what David added. It is essentially all the changes that David added to the project, but it looks like that his changes overwrote what I had. So maybe I should have been kind of more specific here, but essentially, remember before I had my let's see, how do I say this? So before I had this, I'll say style. Make another file here, kind of off the track here. I'll say style this, yes. So remember, I had my body and I had my margin of 0. But on David's version, he decided, no, that's weird. Why is that there? I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say background color of yellow. So do you see that? Essentially, David overwrote what I had, and he added these changes, but I still had my previous changes on my computer because that's just what I have. So yeah, that's essentially what happened here. So now what I want to do is I want to say, oh my gosh, there's a merge conflict. I should probably communicate. This would be the point of the project where you have to communicate with your collaborator and say, hey, I have this change. I see this incoming change. I want to, can I add this? I see that there are differences here. Which one do we want to keep, essentially? And again, there should be strong communication. So this shouldn't really be coming up often, but it definitely can happen. And this is just essentially a method to make sure that no work is lost, because losing work is really annoying. That can happen. So again, you can choose accept current change, accept incoming change, accept both changes, or compare changes. The first thing you might want to do, you could also compare changes. And again, you could see here that this is the changes that are being removed. And so this is the changes that I have locally, and these are the changes that are on the remote repository that are on GitHub somewhere out there. So I communicate with David, we have a little chat, maybe have some coffee, and I decide, hey, we both decide. That's important. Everyone should be on the same page. We both decide, okay, maybe you're right, maybe background color of yellow for the body is a bad idea. And it's I don't know, that's very weird, for my opinion. But that's just me. So I'm going to accept the current change. We're both going to accept the current change. Fantastic. And finally, I'm going to do, and you'll see right here inside of this, and if you have Git Bash, you should see the styles merging. So finally, you're going to be, it even tells you right here, previous in the terminal, it says fix conflicts and then commit the results. So now I'm going to say, okay, git add, and git commit. And you could even use you could even say fix merge conflicts if you want. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Well, you probably should actually be more descriptive about it. Maybe in this case, I'll say fix merge conflicts, But in addition to that, you'll say like keeping body margin 0 and h1 styling, stuff like that. Because remember, there was already a commit and a push to our styles branch that was not like this. So we'll do our git commit, and finally you'll say your git push origin styles. And now we do not have a git conflict, no merge conflict. So now if we navigate to GitHub, so back to here, you'll see that if we go to our styles branch, and again, you could go to a variety of branches through here. In our styles branch, you should see that it has Danny, my version of the code on here. So you can see margin 0, background color, this color. Fantastic. So now I could even do another compare and pull request. I say, hey, this is great. Hey, please, actually, no, not this is great. Hey, please add my work. It is great. And obviously, it should be more descriptive, but this is just fun for me. And fantastic. It's going to be doing a check to make sure that you have all the proper changes. And you're going to say, okay, confirm the merge. Yep, that's fantastic. And now you can safely close this, this styles branch. And we could even check it out. We can even go to Insights, go to Network, and you should see. So look at this. So we currently have. What's happening here, huh? Interesting. Oh, okay. So this is essentially what happened when there's two different versions of that styles branch, and that happened when David over here was working on stuff and he added to this branch. So again, this is our UI branch that we added earlier. We had our HTML file. We added that. We did a merge request, pull request, and now we created that new branch called styles. So I said, oh, okay, I Daniel, added style.css and body styling, and David, he did a pull request and he made a commit and a push, and it was called adding styling to Bedoy. I don't know how to spell. And finally, I did a push, but then as Daniel, I added my H1 styling, and finally I'm trying to push, but then I see right here, oh no, like I'm trying to do a push to styles, but then I actually had to merge these two divergent branches in order to bring them into one branch that could be then added to my main branch there. That's essentially what's happening. Let me see if there's anything else I can add. Let's consider here. So another thing we could potentially add is in our, no, you know what? Let's keep it there for now. That's essentially the real basics of using of Git, since this video is getting a little bit long here. But yep, there's probably plenty of things that I missed. There's plenty of additional features you can add in Git, which is really nice. I'll even pop in a really easy one to do right now. Say you are in, so I'm going to go back to main really quick. This is a really quick one. I'm going to say git checkout -b cool new feature. And I'm adding my script. I'm saying script.js. I'm adding a coding file. I'm adding this console.log new feature here. And of course, right now I'm in my cool new feature branch. But here's a good point. Check it out. I don't have my style.css. That's important to notice. So the reason why that happened was because, again, if I go back to my main, I'll do, actually, here's a good point. You can use your git stash now. You can say git stash, and this is going to hide away all the changes you did, so you don't have to commit them just yet. Oh, and look at that. It says no local changes to save. Okay, well, if not, then I'm going to do, so the reason why is because you could do git add, and then you can do git stash. Okay, cool. So now this script.js doesn't exist, so I'm going to navigate to git checkout main. And remember, we added our style.css, but it's not here. Where did it go? We're going to go ahead and do a git pull origin main. Everyone in your project should be doing a git pull origin main very often, and they should definitely be doing it whenever something has been merged to main. Whenever like a new feature has been added to main, always make sure to do a git pull origin main. Your main branch is essentially your sacred branch. Essentially in all of this. So let's navigate back to cool new feature. I think that was very fun. Cool new feature. So let's see a cool new feature. And look at this, cool new feature doesn't have that style.css. Let's add it. So git pull origin main. And now I have it, which is fantastic. But where is that cool new feature that I added earlier? Here's a really nice one. You can do git stash pop, and this will bring back whatever you stashed earlier. So you could do git stash pop, and now you'll see here I have my script.js with this cool, console.log new feature. And finally, you can say git add, git commits, add cool new feature, and git push origin, cool new feature. And finally, go back to GitHub here, and it's going to ask you, hey, look at this. You can compare pull request. You go ahead and do that, and let's see here, able to merge, fantastic. So it's going to ask you this, confirm the merge, and sometimes it does that. That's fine. And now finally, this is our project here. So it looks a little convoluted, but this is essentially how it is. With working with Git, it's here to save you. It's here to really protect your project. Really helpful. There's plenty of version control systems out there. Well, not plenty, maybe just a handful that are reliable, that people use pretty often. But Git is the one that I'm used to a lot. And of course, there might have been some things that I missed, I didn't cover. I would highly recommend that you go to the Git documentation. Again, there's plenty of documentation here to learn about other systems. For instance, one that you should look up after this video, I would say, is you should look up how to do Git rebase. You can say Git rebase, and if you look that up, I would recommend the Atlassian Git tutorial. It's very cool. There's Git rebase, and they tell you how to do a lot of stuff there. In addition to that, that's really about it. Go ahead and look into that one. That one's really cool. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Take care. Goodbye. And cut. Oh, holy smokes, that was 42 minutes.